The year was 1912, and Europe stood precariously on the edge of a new century, yet the familiar tensions of old rivalries and imperial ambitions still held sway over the continent. The Balkans, often referred to as the powder keg of Europe, had been simmering for decades under the weight of nationalist movements, ethnic rivalries, and the decaying grip of the Ottoman Empire. The intricate history of the region, defined by centuries of conflict, conquest, and competing interests, now culminated in a war that would forever reshape the destiny of the Balkans, and ultimately contribute to the outbreak of the First World War. The First Balkan War, which began on October 1912, was the culmination of long-standing animosities, not just between the Balkan states and the Ottoman Empire, but also among the Balkan nations themselves. This war was far more than a simple struggle for independence. It was a war of liberation and expansion, where each state sought not only to free its kin from Ottoman rule, but also to expand its borders at the expense of its neighbors. From the mountains of Montenegro to the plains of Thrace, and from the naval battles in the Aegean to the sieges of fortified Ottoman cities, the First Balkan War would unfold as a theater of both triumph and tragedy. In this complex struggle, the strategies, decisions, and battles fought would shape not just the political landscape of the Balkans, but the fate of empires. To understand the First Balkan War, one must first grasp the long and tortured decline of the Ottoman Empire in Europe. In the 14th century, the Ottomans had crossed from Anatolia into the Balkans, capitalizing on the fractured state of the Byzantine Empire and the weakness of local rulers. Within a century, they had established control over much of southeastern Europe, including Bulgaria, Serbia, and Greece. By the 16th century, the Ottoman Empire had reached its zenith, ruling vast territories in Europe, Asia, and Africa. However, the centuries that followed saw a steady decline in Ottoman power. By the 18th and 19th centuries, the empire's military system had fallen behind that of its European rivals. The once formidable Janissary Corps had grown corrupt and inefficient, and the sultans struggled to modernize their forces in the face of mounting rebellions and external pressures. The loss of territories in the Russo-Turkish Wars, the independence of Greece in 1830, and the recognition of Serbia, Romania, and Montenegro's independence in 1878 had already signaled the shrinking Ottoman footprint in Europe. Despite these losses, the Ottomans still controlled key regions in the Balkans, including Macedonia, Thrace, Kosovo, and Albania. These territories were ethnically and religiously diverse, with a mix of Muslim and Christian populations, each with its own aspirations for independence. Nationalism was on the rise across Europe, and in the Balkans it fueled both liberation movements and territorial ambitions. By the turn of the 20th century, it was clear that the Ottoman grip on these lands was slipping, and the Balkan states, newly emboldened by their independence, were preparing to seize the moment. The early 20th century saw the rise of alliances and treaties among the Balkan states, each eager to take advantage of the Ottoman Empire's decline. However, these states, mainly Serbia, Bulgaria, Greece, and Montenegro, were not natural allies. They had long-standing rivalries and conflicting territorial claims, particularly over Macedonia, a region rich in history and strategic importance. Nonetheless, the Balkan states recognized that they would need to set aside their differences, at least temporarily, if they were to successfully challenge the Ottomans. The formation of the Balkan League was the result of delicate diplomacy, and the growing realization that unity was essential for any success against the Ottomans. In March 1912, Serbia and Bulgaria signed a military alliance, agreeing to divide Macedonia between them after a victory against the Ottoman Empire. This was followed by a similar agreement between Bulgaria and Greece in May. Montenegro, the smallest but most fiercely independent of the Balkan states, also joined the League, signing a treaty with Serbia in September 1912. The Balkan League was now a reality, though fragile. Beneath the surface, tensions simmered between the allies over their future spoils of war. Bulgaria, with the largest army, believed it should receive the lion's share of Macedonia, while Serbia had its eyes set on Kosovo and Albania. Greece, meanwhile, was determined to capture the strategically vital port of Thessaloniki, a city coveted by both Bulgaria and Serbia. Yet for the time being, these differences were set aside as all eyes turned toward the Ottoman Empire. The opportunity for war came in 1911, when Italy launched an invasion of Ottoman-controlled Libya. The Italians, seeking to expand their empire, decisively defeated the Ottomans, exposing the empire's military weaknesses. Emboldened by this, the Balkan League began to plan its own campaign against the Ottomans. The League's leaders were further encouraged by the oppressive policies of the Young Turk regime in Istanbul, which had alienated the empire's Christian subjects and deepened the divide between the Ottomans and their Balkan provinces. On October 8, 1912, Montenegro was the first to strike, declaring war on the Ottoman Empire. Within days, Serbia, Bulgaria, and Greece followed suit, and the First Balkan War had officially begun. The Ottoman Empire, already weakened by its war with Italy, now faced a full-scale invasion on multiple fronts. The strategic situation at the outbreak of war heavily favored the Balkan League. The Ottomans were fighting a two-front war, with Italian forces still occupying Libya, and their forces in Europe were poorly organized and spread thin. In contrast, the Balkan states had meticulously prepared for this moment, coordinating their plans and amassing large, well-trained armies. The Balkan League's strategy was simple: overwhelm the Ottoman forces with superior numbers and capture key cities and fortresses. Bulgaria was assigned the most crucial role, as it had the largest and most well-equipped army. Bulgarian forces would strike directly at the heart of Ottoman power in Europe, Thrace, with the goal of capturing Adrianople and advancing toward Constantinople itself. Bulgaria's military planners, led by General Nikola Ivanov and General Radko Dmitriev, envisioned a lightning campaign that would bring Ottoman resistance to its knees in a matter of weeks. Serbia and Montenegro were tasked with attacking Ottoman positions in the west, particularly in Kosovo and the Sanjak of Novi Pazar, regions that Serbia viewed as part of its historical homeland. Serbian forces, led by General Radomir Putnik, would push south into Macedonia, aiming to liberate their Slavic brethren from Ottoman rule and secure control over the coveted region. Greece, though the smallest of the major powers in the League, had a unique advantage: its navy. The Greek fleet, commanded by Admiral Pavlos Konturiotis, would dominate the Aegean Sea, preventing Ottoman reinforcements from crossing over from Asia and supporting the Balkan League's land campaign. On land, the Greek army, led by Crown Prince Constantine, would march north into Thessaly and Macedonia, with the ultimate goal of capturing the port of Thessaloniki. The Ottoman Empire, meanwhile, was at a severe disadvantage. Its forces in Europe were poorly equipped and demoralized, having been weakened by years of internal strife and corruption. The Ottoman High Command, under the leadership of Nazim Pasha, scrambled to organize a defense, but their forces were spread too thin to hold back the coordinated offensives of the Balkan League. The first major clash of the war came in the west, where Serbian and Montenegrine forces launched a coordinated offensive against Ottoman positions in the Sanjak and Kosovo. The Serbs, under the command of General Putnik, moved quickly to engage the Ottoman forces at Kumanovo, a small town in northern Macedonia that was strategically located on the road to Skopje. The Battle of Kumanovo, fought on October 23 and 24, 1912, would prove to be a decisive victory for the Serbian army. The Ottoman forces, led by Zeki Pasha, had entrenched themselves in defensive positions around Kumanovo, hoping to delay the Serbian advance and regroup their forces. However, the Ottoman commanders had underestimated the strength and determination of the Serbian army. Putnik, a seasoned and cautious strategist, deployed his forces in a wide arc, outflanking the Ottoman positions and cutting off their retreat. The battle was fierce and bloody, with both sides suffering heavy casualties. The Ottoman forces, though outnumbered, fought bravely, but their defensive lines began to crumble under the relentless Serbian assault. After 2 days of intense fighting, the Ottomans were forced to retreat in disarray, leaving behind thousands of dead and wounded. The victory at Kumanovo opened the way for the Serbian army to advance deeper into Macedonia, and within weeks, they had captured Skopje, the capital of the Ottoman province. While the Serbs were advancing in the west, the Bulgarian army was executing its plan to strike at the heart of Ottoman power in Thrace. The First Army, commanded by General Vasil Kutinchev, was tasked with capturing the fortress city of Adrianople, while the Second Army, under General Ivanov, would advance south toward the Ottoman capital of Constantinople. The first major engagement in Thrace took place at Kirk Kilis on October 24 and 25, 1912. The Ottoman forces, led by Abdullah Pasha, had established strong defensive positions in the hills around the town, but the Bulgarians launched a daring and well-coordinated assault, using their superior artillery to devastate the Ottoman lines. The battle quickly turned into a rout, with the Ottomans abandoning their positions and fleeing toward Constantinople. The victory at Kirk Kilis was followed by an even more significant triumph at Luleburgaz on October 28 and 31st. This battle, one of the largest of the war, saw over 200,000 soldiers engaged in a brutal contest for control of the key road leading to Constantinople. The Bulgarian army, despite being outnumbered, managed to break through the Ottoman lines after days of fierce fighting. The Ottoman retreat from Luleburgaz marked the collapse of their defenses in Thrace, and the road to Constantinople now lay open. As the Bulgarian armies advanced toward Constantinople, another Bulgarian force laid siege to Adrianople, or modern Edirne, one of the most heavily fortified cities in the Ottoman Empire. The siege of Adrianople, which began in October 1912, would last for months and become one of the defining events of the war. Adrianople was not just a strategic target, but a city of immense symbolic importance. It had been the capital of the Ottoman Empire before the conquest of Constantinople, and its capture would deal a severe blow to Ottoman prestige. The city was defended by a garrison of over 50,000 soldiers under the command of Shukru Pasha, a determined and capable leader, who vowed to hold the city at all costs. The siege was a grueling and bloody affair. The Bulgarian army, lacking sufficient heavy artillery, initially struggled to breach the city's formidable defenses. The Ottomans, meanwhile, mounted a fierce defense, repelling several Bulgarian assaults and launching counterattacks to break the siege. Winter set in, turning the battlefield into a quagmire of mud and blood. However, the Bulgarians were determined to capture the city, and in March 1913, after months of relentless pressure, they launched a final assault. This time, they brought up heavy siege artillery, including some of the largest cannons in Europe, and pounded the city's defenses into rubble. On March 26, 1913, Adrianople fell to the Bulgarians, marking a turning point in the war and signaling the beginning of the end for Ottoman rule in the Balkans. While the Bulgarians and Serbs were making gains on land, Greece played a critical role in the war through its dominance of the seas. The Greek navy, under Admiral Kountoriotis, quickly established control over the Aegean Sea, cutting off Ottoman supply lines and preventing reinforcements from being brought over from Asia Minor. Greek naval victories at Ely in December 1912 and Lemnos in January 1913 ensured that the Ottoman fleet would remain bottled up in its ports for the remainder of the war. On land, the Greek army, led by Crown Prince Constantine, advanced north into Macedonia. The Battle of Giannitsa, fought on November 1st and 2nd, 1912, was a crucial victory for the Greeks. The Ottoman forces, though outnumbered, had fortified their positions around the town, hoping to delay the Greek advance toward Thessaloniki. However, the Greeks launched a well-executed frontal assault, overwhelming the Ottoman defenders and forcing them to retreat. The victory at Giannitsa opened the way to Thessaloniki, the most coveted prize of the war. The city, a bustling port and the second largest in the Ottoman Empire, was crucial to controlling the northern Aegean and the surrounding region. Both Greece and Bulgaria had designs on the city, but it was the Greeks who moved first. On November 8, 1912, Greek forces entered Thessaloniki, securing the city before the arrival of a Bulgarian division that had been dispatched too late. The capture of Thessaloniki was a major coup for Greece and a source of lasting tension between the two allies. By December 1912, the Ottoman Empire was in full retreat. Its armies had been decisively beaten in the field, and its remaining forces were besieged in a few isolated strongholds, including Shkodër in Albania, Janina in Epirus, and the Gallipoli Peninsula. Recognizing that further resistance was futile, the Ottoman government sued for peace, and on December 3, 1912, an armistice was signed between the Empire and the Balkan League. The Peace Conference of London convened in December 1912 to negotiate the terms of a final settlement. The Balkan states demanded the cession of almost all Ottoman territories in Europe, including Macedonia, Thrace, Kosovo, and Albania. The Ottomans, desperate to retain some semblance of their European empire, resisted these demands, but their bargaining position was weak. The negotiations were interrupted by a coup in Istanbul in January 1913, which brought the Young Turks back to power. The new government, led by Enver Pasha, was determined to continue the war in an effort to regain lost territories, particularly Adrianople. However, the Ottoman forces were in no position to mount a serious counteroffensive, and by the spring of 1913, the last Ottoman strongholds in Europe had fallen. The final peace treaty, signed on May 30, 1913, was a crushing blow to the Ottoman Empire. The empire was forced to cede all of its territories in Europe, except for a small strip of land around Constantinople. The Balkan states divided the spoils among themselves, with Macedonia being partitioned between Serbia, Greece, and Bulgaria. The war had been a resounding success for the Balkan League, but it also sowed the seeds of future conflict. The First Balkan War may have been a victory for the Balkan states, but the peace that followed was anything but stable. Bulgaria, which had borne the brunt of the fighting and expected to receive the largest share of the conquered territories, felt cheated by the division of Macedonia. The Bulgarians had hoped to control all of Macedonia, including Thessaloniki, but found themselves in possession of only a portion of the region. Tensions between the former allies quickly escalated, as Serbia and Greece solidified their control over much of Macedonia, while Bulgaria fumed at what it saw as a betrayal. In June 1913, less than a month after the signing of the Peace of London, Bulgaria launched a surprise attack on its former allies, sparking the Second Balkan War. This conflict, though shorter and less bloody than the first, would further destabilize the region and set the stage for the outbreak of the First World War just a year later. We will cover the Second Balkan War in our next video, so make sure you are subscribed and have turned on post notifications. The First Balkan War had been a decisive moment in the history of southeastern Europe. It marked the end of Ottoman rule in the Balkans, and the beginning of a new era of independence and rivalry among the Balkan states. Yet the war also demonstrated the fragility of the peace that followed, as the competing ambitions of the Balkan nations threatened to plunge the region into further conflict. In the end, the First Balkan War was not just a war of liberation, but a prelude to the global conflagration that would soon engulf the entire world. On May 30th, 1913, the Treaty of London brought an end to the First Balkan War, a conflict that had lasted for almost 8 months. It was a pivotal war that significantly weakened the Ottoman Empire's centuries-long control over southeastern Europe. The victorious Balkan League, composed of Bulgaria, Serbia, Greece, and Montenegro, had succeeded in pushing the Ottomans out of nearly all their European territories, except for a small strip around Constantinople. Cities of immense strategic and symbolic importance, such as Adrianople, had fallen to the winners. Albania emerged as a newly independent state. However, despite this significant achievement, the peace that followed was fragile, and the alliances forged in war began to unravel almost immediately. The Second Balkan War erupted just a month later, driven by bitter disputes over the spoils of the First Balkan War, especially over the division of Macedonia. Bulgaria, the most ambitious of the Balkan League members, felt cheated by its allies. A new conflict was now on the horizon, one that would pit former comrades in arms against each other and change the political landscape of the Balkans once again. The First Balkan War had fundamentally altered the balance of power in the Balkans. Bulgaria, which had made the largest contribution in terms of manpower and resources to the war effort, believed it deserved the lion's share of the newly liberated territories, particularly Macedonia. Before the war, a secret agreement signed on March 13, 1912, between Serbia and Bulgaria had outlined how they would divide Macedonia. According to the agreement, northern Macedonia would go to Serbia, while Bulgaria would receive southern Macedonia, including the key port city of Thessaloniki. However, as the war unfolded, reality deviated from the plan. The Serbian army advanced far beyond the agreed border, occupying territory in northern Macedonia that Bulgaria claimed as its own. Meanwhile, in southern Macedonia, Greek forces had swiftly advanced north and taken control of Thessaloniki, one of the most strategically vital cities in the region. Bulgaria's efforts to capture the city had been frustrated by the speed of the Greek advance. Bulgaria called on Serbia to honor the pre-war agreement, but Serbia, emboldened by its battlefield successes, refused. Adding to the tensions, the great powers, particularly Austria-Hungary, insisted that Serbia withdraw from northern Albania, which they had occupied during the war. The creation of an independent Albania under the Treaty of London was a bitter pill for Serbia, as it dashed the country's hopes of gaining an outlet to the Adriatic Sea. This only increased Serbia's determination to hold on to its gains in Macedonia. Seeing Bulgaria as a potential threat, Serbia began negotiating a defensive alliance with Greece. Both nations were concerned about Bulgaria's territorial ambitions, which now seemed to extend well beyond the provisions of the 1878 Treaty of San Stefano, a treaty that Bulgaria viewed as a blueprint for its national aspirations. This agreement had envisioned a greater Bulgaria that included all of Macedonia and Thrace. Though much of the treaty had been overturned by the Congress of Berlin the same year, Bulgaria's nationalist ambitions persisted. Bulgaria's ruler, Tsar Ferdinand I, shared these grand ambitions. He dreamed of creating a powerful Bulgarian state, one that could rival the great powers of Europe. In 1912, Ferdinand had joined the Balkan League's assault on the Ottoman Empire. With these lofty goals in mind, he viewed the war as a crusade, a struggle of the Christian cross against the Islamic crescent. Though the League had won the war, Bulgaria's territorial gains fell far short of Ferdinand's expectations. By mid-June 1913, Bulgaria had become aware of the secret defensive alliance between Serbia and Greece. As skirmishes between Bulgarian and Serbian forces continued to flare up in Macedonia, the stage was set for a new war. Tensions reached a boiling point when, on June 27th, Montenegro announced that it would side with Serbia in any future conflict with Bulgaria. Romania, which had remained neutral during the First Balkan War, also warned Bulgaria that it would not stand by if another war broke out. Despite efforts by Russia, the sponsor of the Balkan League, to mediate the escalating crisis, it became clear that a new conflict was inevitable. Bulgaria had already decided to go to war. On the night of June 29th, Tsar Ferdinand, without notifying his government, ordered the Bulgarian army to launch a surprise attack on Serbian and Greek positions, effectively igniting the Second Balkan War. At the outset of the war, Bulgaria had significant military strength, on paper. In the First Balkan War, it had mobilized an impressive 600,000 men. However, after the war, the Bulgarian army was reorganized into 9 divisions, each with a strength closer to that of an army corps than a traditional division. Tactical adjustments during the First Balkan War had led to the formation of a 10th Division and several independent brigades composed of new recruits. Despite the reorganization, Bulgaria's military strategy for the Second Balkan War was overambitious. The main Bulgarian assault was planned against Serbia, with Bulgaria's 1st, 3rd, 4th, and 5th armies tasked with attacking Serbian positions. Meanwhile, the Second Army, under the command of General Ivanov, would strike Greek positions around Thessaloniki. Bulgaria hoped to quickly overwhelm their adversaries before they could properly organize a defense. The initial attack, on the night of June 29th, caught both the Serbian and Greek forces by surprise. However, the Bulgarian offensive soon ran into significant problems. Only the 4th and 2nd armies were ordered to advance at first, which allowed the Serbs to concentrate their forces and blunt the Bulgarian attack. In the crucial opening days of the war, the 1st and 3rd Bulgarian armies remained inactive, costing Bulgaria valuable momentum. The Battle of Bregalnica, fought from July 1st to July 3rd, was the first major clash between the Bulgarians and Serbs. The Bulgarian 4th Army, commanded by General Stilian Kovachev, attempted to push deep into Serbian-held Macedonia. Initially, they achieved some limited success, advancing against Serbian positions along the Zlatovska River. However, their advance soon faltered. The Serbs, under the brilliant leadership of General Radomir Putnik, rallied their forces and launched a fierce counteroffensive. The Bulgarian 4th Army, commanded by General Stilian Kovachev, attempted to push deep into Serbian-held Macedonia. Initially, they achieved some limited success, advancing against Serbian positions along the Zlatovska River. However, their advance soon faltered. The Serbs, under the brilliant leadership of General Radomir Putnik, rallied their forces and launched a fierce counteroffensive. In a series of hard-fought engagements, the Serbs not only halted the Bulgarian advance, but also managed to encircle and capture the entire 7th Division of the Bulgarian army. The Bulgarian 4th Army, which had been tasked with spearheading the offensive against Serbia, was forced into a defensive position around Kratovo. With heavy losses and a depleted fighting force, Kovachev's army dug in, hoping to hold off the Serbian onslaught. By July 3rd, the momentum of the Bulgarian attack had been decisively checked, and the focus of the war shifted to defensive operations. While the Bulgarians struggled against the Serbs in the north, they faced even greater challenges in the south against Greece. General Ivanov's 2nd Army, positioned near Thessaloniki, was ordered to launch an attack on Greek positions along the Axios River. However, the Greeks, under the leadership of Crown Prince Constantine, were well prepared for the Bulgarian offensive. The first major engagement between the Greek and Bulgarian forces occurred at Kilkis, from June 30th to July 4th. The Battle of Kilkis, one of the most important battles of the war, saw the Greek army decisively defeat Ivanov's forces. Despite being outnumbered and facing better equipped Bulgarian troops, the Greeks launched a massive counterattack supported by heavy artillery fire. The Bulgarians, taken by surprise by the ferocity of the Greek assault, were forced to abandon their positions and retreat toward the Struma River. The fall of Kilkis was a critical blow to the Bulgarian war effort in the south. With their defenses collapsing, the Bulgarian forces retreated further north, pursued by the advancing Greek army. By July 5th, the Greeks had captured the important town of Doiran, further weakening Bulgaria's position in southern Macedonia. Though they had hoped to cut off the Bulgarian retreat, the Greeks were unable to do so, allowing much of Ivanov's battered army to escape. The Greek victory at Kilkis allowed Crown Prince Constantine to push deeper into Bulgarian territory. The Greek army advanced toward Ceres in the Strymon Valley. By July 11th, the Greeks linked up with Serbian forces near the town of Strumica, creating a united front against the Bulgarians. While Bulgaria was reeling from defeats on the Serbian and Greek fronts, a new threat emerged from the north. On July 10th, Romania, which had remained neutral during the First Balkan War, declared war on Bulgaria. The Romanian army, numbering 200,000 men, launched an unopposed invasion of southern Dobruja, a fertile region that Romania had long coveted. The Bulgarians, already stretched thin on the Serbian and Greek fronts, were in no position to resist the Romanian advance. Romanian forces swiftly captured Silistra and pushed toward the Danube River, advancing deep into Bulgarian territory. By July 20th, the Romanian army had reached the outskirts of Varna, Bulgaria's major Black Sea port. In a symbolic gesture, Romanian aircraft flew over Sofia, dropping propaganda leaflets calling for Bulgaria's surrender. Sofia became the first capital city in history to be overflown by enemy aircraft, a clear sign of how desperate Bulgaria's situation had become. As Bulgaria's enemies closed in from all sides, the Ottoman Empire seized the opportunity to regain some of the territories it had lost in the First Balkan War. On July 22nd, Ottoman forces crossed the Maritsa River and advanced into eastern Thrace. With Bulgaria's attention focused on its war with Serbia, Greece, and Romania, the Ottomans encountered little resistance. The Ottoman army quickly recaptured Adrianople, restoring the city to Ottoman control without a fight. Ottoman troops also moved to secure the Gallipoli Peninsula and other strategic positions in Thrace. The loss of Adrianople was a major setback for Bulgaria, both strategically and symbolically. By late July 1913, Bulgaria was on the verge of collapse. Encircled by enemies on all sides, and facing the prospect of losing even more territory, Tsar Ferdinand had little choice but to sue for peace. On August 10, 1913, the Treaty of Bucharest was signed, bringing an official end to the Second Balkan War. The terms of the treaty were harsh for Bulgaria. Macedonia was partitioned between Serbia, Greece, and Romania, with Bulgaria receiving only a small portion of the contested territory. Bulgaria was forced to cede southern Dobruja to Romania and relinquish its claims to Adrianople and eastern Thrace, which were returned to the Ottoman Empire. The Second Balkan War marked the end of Bulgaria's aspirations to dominate the Balkans. It had been a costly and humiliating conflict for the country, one that left it diplomatically isolated and economically weakened. Though Bulgaria had initially sought to build a new empire in the region, its overreach and miscalculation had backfired spectacularly. For the other Balkan states, the war was a mixed success. Serbia, which had nearly doubled in size, emerged as the most powerful state in the region. However, its rapid expansion fueled tensions with Austria-Hungary, which viewed Serbia's growing power with alarm. The strained relationship between Austria-Hungary and Serbia would soon lead to the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and the outbreak of the First World War. The Second Balkan War also demonstrated the fragility of alliances in the region. The Balkan League, which had united against the Ottomans in 1912, had quickly disintegrated into conflict as soon as the common enemy was defeated. The shifting alliances and territorial disputes of the Second Balkan War foreshadowed the instability that would continue to plague the Balkans throughout the 20th century. In the broader context of European history, the Second Balkan War was a critical event that helped set the stage for the Great War. The tensions that erupted in the Balkans in 1913 would soon engulf the entire continent, dragging the major powers of Europe into one of the most devastating conflicts in human history. For Bulgaria, the Second Balkan War was a bitter chapter in its history, but it was far from the end. In 1915, Bulgaria would join the Central Powers in the First World War, seeking revenge against Serbia and hoping to regain the territories it had lost. But that is a story for another time. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to get notified when we release more history content.